Well, I got that welded up, grinded back down so it's flat so I can slide my plywood across it. On to the next thing. All right, what's up, y'all? So today on the Re-Newell project, we are cutting out old rusty metal and welding in new metal. And right now, what I'm trying to do here is get a straight edge lined up. This is just a piece of flat bar that I already had laying around. And what I'm doing is just lining it up using the nozzle of the plasma cutter as a guide to get it to where the actual hole in the tip of the plasma cutter is lined up perfectly with that line, so that when I go down that straight edge, it cuts it out exactly where I want it, because you don't want to cut the hole too big, because you end up with this big gap that you can't fill with weld. And if you cut it too small, then you end up having to grind and do a bunch of stuff trying to try to get it right. So you really want this to be kind of perfect. So that's why I'm taking my time here. And then I'll just use some magnets to hold that in place while I do my plasma cutting. And that's what you can kind of see. I'm grabbing the magnet there, out of frame, but yeah, there's the second one there. Okay, so now we're just running the torch down through here to make sure it's gonna move relatively smoothly, and then I'm just pulling the slack up so that it doesn't get hung on anything when I get ready to actually cut. And then I'm just starting on a place where I had kind of already cut a little bit, so there's some shiny metal there, and there it goes. And that plasma cutter has been a savior. I mean, I don't know what I would have done without it. I'm glad I ended up ordering one, because I can't imagine having to cut all of this stuff out with a grinder. It would have been rough. And one of the other things I learned is that it's kind of tough to cut rusty metal with a plasma cutter. It's not that tough, but it does kind of lose connectivity every now and then with in some of the real bad spots. But for the most part, it works pretty good. And then in this corner here, I didn't have any way to guide that, and not an easy way anyway. So I'm just kind of freehanding that. And then I think what I ended up doing here is just pushing the wall out of the way and finishing that cut right there. All right, and now we're just going to beat on it with a hammer for a little while. I'm just trying to make sure that it went through, and it's going to go ahead and break loose. And it looks like it did. And then, yeah, that's what I thought. So pushing the wall out of the way now, or I'm trying to see if I can. I'm like, yeah, can I push this out of the way? And then set it on fire by accident with this plasma cutter? Sure. Yeah, that'll work. No problem. So now we're over here on the other side, and I'm just trying to get this piece of sheet metal out. Now everything that I can cut with the plasma cutter has already been cut, so I'm just trying to deal with this brace that runs down through the middle of it. And so we're just gonna use the grinder, and then I use the plasma cutter, and then the grinder again, and basically just trying to get this piece out of here. They put little spot welds across the top of that thing. That's what I'm having to cut. Yeah, not too shabby. All right, so we've got all the metal cut out. I've got this crossbar that's fixing to get covered up, cleaned up as good as I can get it, and up under there. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some rust converter, and I'm going to spray this thing so that it doesn't start rusting in between this new piece of metal over here and the cross member. So, because I don't plan on welding it all the way across, I'm just going to do what they did and tack it in a couple places. So I want to have something to slow the rust down. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to hit one side of this with that stuff as well. And if it's going to get burned off when I weld, but I don't know, it's better than nothing. So that's what we're going to do now. Try to give it a little bit of a chance to stick. This is one of those things where if you don't take the whole, the only way to really get this perfect is just to take the whole bus apart. And for what I'm going to be doing, it's just not necessary. Let that flash off for a second. So this metal has not rusted yet. But back in the day when I used to use this stuff, it would turn black anyway. It seemed like back then. But I could be wrong about that. It might not. But if not, that's fine. It just makes a fine, clear primer. As you can see, right there, that was where a little rust was trying to start. See it turning black. That's what it does. Right there. Black now. I spray a little bit. Okay, so there you can kind of see what it's doing, turning black. It's a little hard to tell in the video. And you can see this is kind of turned into a purple haze there. And that's good. That's what we want. That means it's reacting. So we'll let this dry tonight, and then tomorrow I'll tack it up. Okay, so we got a lot of metal cut out. You can see laying on the ground, and that's all the foam that I chopped out. And there's the big hole with all of the, you can see the black from the one step there. So it all ended up working pretty good. So we got a lot of holes to weld up. So here we go, the first of many welds on this project. But with sheet metal, especially sheet metal that you're welding to very, very old 42-year-old rusty sheet metal, you have to go really slow and just put little bitty tacks and keep moving around, because if you let it get too hot, it just blows through. And then sometimes it just blows through anyway, you know, and it's challenging. So I'm learning I'm learning the hard way here. Honestly, when I first started this, I really did not have that much welding experience at all. And by the time, by the time I did this piece and a bunch of other pieces, I tell you, you learn quick. But yeah, this went okay. It wasn't too bad. It's not the worst metal I had to weld up against. All right, so there's a welder in my bus. So I got this piece welded in, and I got some of these other patches welded in. Shed a little light on the situation. This little patch right here went pretty good. The welds aren't the most pretty in the world, but who cares? It's just going to get ground off anyway. Some of the places were a little bit hard to weld because the metal was a little thin from the rust. To be honest, this whole plate probably should have been replaced, but it was just, right now metal is really expensive and kind of hard to find, and so I decided to just kind of patch it in as best I could. But not too bad either way. What I did here is I welded over to the bracing, and then I just welded to my other piece there. You can see that other seam where it comes under the door. And I was actually able to just push this over and get that welded right there. And then I'm still working on this one. You can kind of see what I'm talking about right here. This was really rusted out. I think what I might end up doing is cutting this out all the way to here. I think there's another brace here, and weld it right there where they were welding before, and do it just like do that corner just like this one. So yeah, we'll see. And then to the left there is more. There's another hole there. I haven't decided 100% what I'm going to do about all of that yet. I've got the really bad spots fixed already. This is in the closet, and if I end up putting the drawers back in here, all this is going to be covered up with cabinetry. So nobody's ever going to walk on it. I may just put some Everbond tape over top of that hole and just be done with it. If you notice how black it all looks, that's because I've treated it with rust stopper stuff. But that's the cabinet that goes in here. So all this is just be covered up. But I'm trying to make it relatively strong. This is the wheel well. So if a tire was to detread or something like that, you really don't, you know, I want it to be relatively strong. And that's why I'm replacing it. Not only that, but to try to seal the water out from getting back up under the floor. So I think it's going to be plenty strong for that. And that's kind of the main goal. And then depending on how that goes on the other side, there's another hole. It's kind of dark, but there's another hole back there. And then way back under the door, you can kind of see some light poking through. Not the door, the wall. You can kind of see some light coming up through there. That's some more rust damage. That's going to be hard to get to and weld because you got to crawl in there to do it. So I'm not really sure. That may just end up with Everbond tape over it, or I may try to weld it from the outside. But anyway, it's been a lot of work, but kind of fun getting to do some welding. So hopefully we'll get this welded up and start putting some flooring back in here. The cool thing about this is if I get this done and go ahead and spray it all, I can go ahead and put flooring in on this side. And I can put that piece in, I can put the center pieces in, but I won't be able to start on this side until I figure out what I'm gonna do here. But it's gonna feel good to get the floor back here. This is one of those deals where it grew rapidly in size as far as the project. I figured I was gonna have to fix a little bit of floor damage, rot damage, and it turned into, well, as you can see, it turned into a lot, but nothing we can't handle. So we'll just keep plugging away at it and we'll get it done eventually. So I'm out in the bus again, welding, and it turns out the metal in one spot here was a little thinner from rust than I thought. And I kept trying to fill it where it was blowing out, and it's just not happening. And so I thought, man, I wish I had some little pieces of metal, something that I could just stick in there and weld that spot up. Well, I do. They're called welding coupons, and it just so happens this stuff is a 1/16 inch thick. So I'm going to use a couple welding coupons to patch this spot and this spot. Why the heck not?